Limited run only. Show ends May the 24th.
No, don't make me laugh.
It's a theory that you've probably heard time and time again over the past couple of months about Doctor Who Season 2. People have even been speculating that Mrs. Flood is some sort of god of fiction since her first appearance way back on Christmas Day 2023.
Never seen a TARDIS before.
But what's the truth behind this living inside a TV show theory? Well, stick with me in this video because I have spent a long time, probably longer than a normal person would, in fact, definitely longer than a normal person would, to break down and connect all of the loose strings into what I think is going to happen in Season 2 of Doctor Who. Because if this happens, the show will genuinely be changed forever. Remember how controversial The Timeless Child was? It could be as, if not even more controversial than that. And there are so many clues pointing towards this direction. We'll go through all of the clues chronologically and start right at the top of the era. If we're excluding the 60th specials, which I think we probably should, the first moment of this new era is voiceover. It's the Doctor telling us a story, which in and of itself isn't anything too much, but just notice throughout the entire Disney Plus run, there's been this theme of storytelling and acknowledging the narrative. Obviously, Lux has literally had the Doctor and Belinda leave a TV and meet fans. Even episode 1, Space Babies, is about how the ship constructs narrative for these children. It's almost like a metaphor for Doctor Who. The ship realises that kids want a monster, so it creates the bogeyman. They realise it needs heroes, monsters, all of this stuff. It's all about narrative. Then you get to the Devil's Chord. The Doctor literally winks into the camera. They have a musical number. The Doctor even has a fantastic line about that sound. I thought it was non-diegetic, which confirms that the Doctor can actually hear his own soundtrack within the episode. Maestro even plays the theme tune. Time and time and time again, we are being reminded that this is a TV show. If you go back to 2005 Doctor Who, Russell is adamant to immerse the audience within it. He doesn't want any cheeky nods, he doesn't want any things that he'd feel were cheap. There's no direct fourth wall breaks, there's no winks at the camera. Why is this new era so clearly okay with acknowledging that this is a TV show? It's almost like a stage show. I mean, at the Doctor Who proms, Mrs. Flood comes out literally on stage and delivers a little cryptic performance.
My name is Mrs. Flood. That's my name, true and proper, so don't argue. I mean, you do believe me, don't you?
Which, by the way, she said, "Don't make me laugh" in that. Is that going to be because she's a god and she's going to do the giggle like Mr. Ring-a-Ding's reveal in the episode Lux?
No, don't make me laugh. I'm just a nice, quiet, friendly soul.
That clue might be a stretch. But let's just talk about Mrs. Flood for a moment, because I think obviously you have the narration, but that's not too odd, that's not within narrative. But Mrs. Flood is technically the first character of this new era to break the fourth wall and introduce this concept that they're living in a TV show. At the end of the church on Ruby Road, she stares directly into the camera and says, "Never seen a TARDIS before," and then winks. Now, we've got to remember that at the start of that episode, the church on Ruby Road, Mrs. Flood doesn't seem to be able to break the fourth wall. She doesn't seem to have this knowledge. The moment that everything seems to click into place is when Mrs. Flood is witness to the TARDIS dematerialising. It's almost as if she sees that and it triggers her memory. So I reckon that Mrs. Flood is a somewhat, maybe like a sleeper agent, or you know how the Master had himself transformed into a human and put his soul and consciousness, his Time Lord soul and consciousness, into a pocket watch? Maybe we're doing something like that again. I reckon Mrs. Flood is some returning villain from the classic series. The Master is way too obvious, so let's go with the Rani. I think either the Rani or Tecteun are our two best shouts onto who Mrs. Flood could be. The Rani might be the best shout because obviously we know Russell loves his anagrams. The Harvest Bringer, Harbinger, Henry Harbinger, Harriet Harbinger, Susan Triad Technologies, TARDIS, Susan Triad Technologies, Sue Tech. Like, the whole thing is wordplay. And can you not just imagine Anita Dobson in what I think will be episode 6 going, "Oh, and I'm the flood, like, what makes a flood, Doctor?" Like, "Ooh, rain, rearrange those letters, Rani."
Dissension in the ranks.
I genuinely, look, I know it sounds silly, but if we got Susan Triad Technology being an anagram for Sutek, this works. As I mentioned quickly, though, the other option for Mrs. Flood's identity could be Tecteun, the Doctor's mother. I'll explain later why she makes possibly more sense than the Rani, although there's no direct clues on that. But whoever she is, I think she's a returning character that's a sleeper agent. She saw the TARDIS, and it brought all of her memories back. She woke up, that's why she acknowledges at the end, never seen a TARDIS before. I think it's only like Time Lords or gods that have the ability to break the fourth wall as well, because as I mentioned, you'll notice in like Space Babies, Ruby is completely unaware that she's in a TV show. Even in The Devil's Cord, she never acknowledges that she's in a TV show. The only characters to do so are either gods, like Maestro the Toymaker, or Time Lords like the Doctor. Or maybe the Doctor is one of those gods, but once again, we'll get onto that later. Also, just while I remember, there is more evidence for Mrs. Flood being the Rani. I've often pondered as to why on earth, don't get me wrong, she's lovely, she's a great actress, why is Melanie Bush back in this era of Doctor Who? Of all the people, it's just random, and it's not a bad choice, but I reckon it's because when we do get this reveal that Mrs. Flood is the Rani, you've got a character who's faced the Rani before, Mel has faced her as a companion, to go, "Oh my gosh, it's the Rani." It's also worth noting that the Rani, her name was just dropped for no reason in the giggle. The Doctor was like, "Oh, the Rani." So before anyone tells me that the BBC don't have the rights to the Rani, oh yes they do. There's also a deleted scene from the giggle just before the bi-generation. Mel actually starts talking about the Rani. She's like, "Don't worry, I've seen this regenerative process before. Remember back on..." I was about to say Tercerus. That's not the name of the planet. That's from The Curse of the Fatal Death. But it's not Legopolis, or... It begins with an L. Lacertia. Is it Lacertia, or is that the name of the aliens? Whatever it is, the time in the Rani, that story, she starts talking about that, and then the Doctor's like, "Do you mind? I'm trying to regenerate." Why does Russell keep bringing up the Rani? It's because he's reminding the audience she's there. Little clues as to her return. If you go even deeper, by the end of season 1, the Doctor has effectively realised his role within the narrative. Like, Sutek is representative, or he literally is the god of death. So the Doctor says, "I must be the god of life." He's, "If you bring death, I bring life. Life to the whole universe." Slowly but surely, the Doctor's kind of acknowledging and realising his place within the narrative, within the established conventions of fiction. He is the opposite. Sutek is the villain, so he must be the hero. Now, I don't think that Sutek and Mrs. Flood are in leagues with each other. I almost think maybe Mrs. Flood is something outside of the pantheon of gods, because why would she just, if she's the big bad, why would she just allow Sutek's plan to happen? She knows about Sutek, she seems to be all-knowing. She says in The Empire of Death, she's like, "Oh, I had such plans," and then fades away, which makes her seem more mortal than maybe a god would be, which is why a character like the Rani or Tecteun makes sense. Another tidbit from The Empire of Death is when Harriet Harbinger is doing the really cool speech about, like, "I bring the trickster," whatever. She mentions the Threefold Deity. What on earth is that? Well, the Threefold Deity may be referencing who Russell has said is the villains of the finale. He says that in the season 2 finale, the Doctor has to face up against the unholy trinity. There's the three there, Threefold Deity, 3 for the Trinity. But what is the unholy trinity? What is the Threefold Deity? Well, if we're thinking about Doctor Who villains and gods, three gods, right? The gods of Ragnarok from the 7th Doctor's era. To give you a little bit of backstory, so this isn't the first time Doctor Who's been meta. These are probably some of the most meta villains Doctor Who has ever done, which really fits within the theming of this era being so acknowledging of breaking the fourth wall and being so meta within the text. So let's say this unholy trinity is the three gods of Ragnarok. Giving you a little bit of backstory on them from the 7th Doctor's era, they were a metaphor for the higher-ups at the BBC wondering whether or not to cancel the show. The whole plot of the greatest show in the galaxy is that if your performance doesn't appease the gods, it doesn't please the gods, then you die. This is obviously during the time of meta Doctor Who, where you've got Trial of a Time Lord as well. It's a couple of years after that. John Nathan Turner was very adamant about talking within the narrative about the way that he viewed the BBC as these higher-ups. He even has fan substitutes in The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, which is incredibly similar to Lux. Now you'll notice that there's three fans in Lux watching the Doctor's adventures, judging whether they're interesting enough. The Threefold Deity, the gods of Ragnarok. What if, just like intended within the greatest show in the galaxy, this is going even more meta than we expect? Because initially in Lux, we're told that these three fans are a fictitious thing, but we're shown in the end credit scene that they're still alive. Not only that, they say within Lux, we're us three, like we don't have surnames, we're characters, but they have surnames in the credits. Russell deliberately gave those characters surnames in the credits because they are real. They are still alive. What if those three are modern-day representations of the gods of Ragnarok? They watch the Doctor's adventures. They judge whether or not the Doctor stays on air. Mrs. Flood even acknowledges in Lux, she's like, oh, the show's on a limited run. It's going to end May 24th.
Limited run only. Show ends May the 24th.
Which is obviously a joke about her destroying the Doctor, thus there will be no show, but does it go more meta than that? It's not just the BBC anymore that have complete control over whether Doctor Who gets cancelled. It's both the fandom and Disney+. These gods of Ragnarok figures literally say, RIP Doctor Who, which on the surface is a joke, but you see where I'm going with this.
Hashtag RIP Doctor Who.
It's also worth noting the gods of Ragnarok, just like the Rani, got a random name drop in the giggle. The Doctor was like, we fought the gods of Ragnarok. Why are you bringing that up? I also don't quite know where this little thread goes, but why on earth is there always a spoon involved within the gods? Maestro appears in a spoon in the Devil's Cord. Like, this can't be coincidence. The Doctor basically saves the universe with a spoon in Empire of Death, and then, yesterday's episode, Mr. Ringading is brought to life by light reflecting off a spoon. I sound like a conspiracy theorist here. I promise I'm not. But the Doctor plays the spoons in The Greatest Show in the Galaxy to appease the gods of Ragnarok. I don't know what's going on with spoons, but gods of Ragnarok have connection to spoons. All these new gods have connections to spoons. Spoons! I actually feel like I've lost the plot. I promise this all adds up. I'm telling you, hashtag spoons. Hashtag Doctor Who spoons. Hashtag the mystery of the spoons. Now, you may be asking, where on earth do the gods of Ragnarok fit in? Well, I shall tell you! The Eurovision Song Contest, just like Greatest Show in the Galaxy, is going to be people singing and performing, otherwise they die. And they die because, just like Greatest Show in the Galaxy, it's going to be the gods of Ragnarok watching over these performances. Russell has even mentioned that Episode 6, the Interstellar Song Contest, apparently blows open Doctor Who and makes it's different to any Doctor Who story we've ever had before, and I'm telling you, it's because this is when the fourth wall, the barrier between the audience and the show, are completely gonna break. There's been hint after hint after hint. The Doctor even says in Lux, who am I saying cut to? And also, I'd just like to refer you to a video I made about 5 years ago called What I'd Do If I Was Doctor Who Showrunner, in which I said the finale of my series would be the Doctor realising he's in a TV show being called John Smith, and it's all a ploy by the Master. As the Doctor leaves and walks down this corridor, a laser beam smashes into the wall. He turns round confused and runs down the corridor before hearing something that neither the audience nor the Doctor was expecting. 3, 2, 1, cut. We see a close-up of the Doctor's face looking around in complete confusion as the camera slowly pans out to reveal that he's on a film set. He's running down a corridor that doesn't lead to anywhere. There's a boom mic operator, there's a whole cast and crew, and there's a director sat in a chair with a megaphone. He shouts to the Doctor, right, reset, do that shot again, and he just stares around in bewilderment. How and why is he on a film set? I think we've had too much of the Master, so just add that character being the Rani, and Russell, you've stolen my work from 5 years ago. Also, I actually feel like a conspiracy theorist here. We need to get our tinfoil hats on. But who's this guy played by Freddie Fox in the Interstellar Song Contest? Okay, Gods of Ragnarok. This guy is Loki, the trickster god. He's got his little horns as well, if you zoom in. We've been told he's a villain. He's a tricky villain. He's Loki, not as in Marvel Loki, as in the trickster god Loki, who is also technically a god of Ragnarok. I'm telling you, the Gods of Ragnarok are the judges of the Interstellar Song Contest. Mrs. Flood is going to break open the fourth wall. The Doctor he's been piecing it together. He's going to realise he's in a TV show that he can't get out of. The text is going to go so meta you wouldn't believe it. And it's no coincidence that the finale is called The Reality War. It's the war between what's real and what's not, what exists within our universe and what doesn't. The conclusion that John Higgs reaches in his Doctor Who book, Exterminate, Regenerate, is effectively that Doctor Who needs to keep evolving and evolving and evolving with the times, and modern TV viewers are you need to appeal to them in a meta sense. He puts it in a much more intellectual way than I just did there. But he's saying that typical old story conventions don't necessarily appeal or work to younger generations, which is quite a sad conclusion to come to, but he makes some really interesting points. He too wouldn't be surprised if Doctor Who goes the full hog and breaks the fourth wall entirely. He points out in his book there are many prior examples. For example, Patrick Troughton, back in the 60s, made a little video that aired before the Yeti stories where he comforts the viewer and says, don't worry guys, I think he says, it's really sweet. He's like, hold your parents' hand if they get scared, and all things like that. It's lovely. And William Hartnell obviously infamously breaks the fourth wall by saying, and a Merry Christmas to all of you at home. And I think this all began at the sprinkling of the salt in Wild Blue Yonder. The Doctor let myth and legend into the universe, which also lets in the acknowledgement, he's going to realise his life is actually fiction. And the fiction, as John Higgs says in this book, is almost alive. Doctor Who is alive as a text, as a thing. It naturally evolves. It weaves its way into the mind of want-to-be storytellers and keeps surviving. It's what it did with Russell. Russell was a kid. It embedded itself in Russell's mind, and then Russell ends up writing the show, and that's probably going to happen with someone else, and it'll just go on and on and on. And is this the point where reality breaks? The reality war ends with the Doctor finally realising, almost reaching an enlightenment of sorts. He has reached the point where he's so clever. Stephen Moffat always bangs on about how clever the Doctor is. He's the cleverest person in the room, so writing him's really tricky. Maybe in a similar way to Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty, the Doctor going forward for the next couple of years until they want to change the direction of the show is going to acknowledge and know that he's in a TV show. We've got incredibly successful films like Deadpool, where he just constantly breaks the fourth wall. Could we see that with the Doctor in future? Or could the Doctor have to sacrifice himself and this knowledge to undo the salt sprinkling from Wild Blue Yonder and send Mrs. Flood and these gods back past the boundary? Now that is running off a theory I said the other day, in which all of these gods are from the other side of the boundary, from the Timeless Children. The Doctor, perhaps, is, as acknowledged in the Empire of Death, not just representative of life, but the god of life. Sutekh brings death, the Doctor brings life. The Doctor's regenerative abilities are his godlike power because originally he is from that universe. Don't forget that the Time Lords got their regenerative abilities from the Doctor. So I reckon we're going to get a conclusion in which I don't quite know how or why the Doctor has to use a spoon, or several spoons, to defeat these gods, to sacrifice himself, to send them back to the other side of the universe, and he will die in the process and then regenerate into the 16th Doctor, ready for a new era. Or, if the show does end, and Disney don't pick it up, BBC don't fund another series, the text will have broken completely into the fourth wall, the show will have ended, and anything becomes canon. It's what the Timeless Child idea was almost trying to do many years ago. Fan film Doctors are canon. Whatever Doctors you want are canon. A Wilderness Years 2 is going to be fascinating because the official show will have stopped. What becomes your Doctor Who? You become the decider of what's canon and what's not. But I think we're getting so meta now that I don't have a meta-related pun. There you go, that's your theory. I think that's where the direction of this series is headed. I think it's gonna be a finale like no other. It's gonna change everything, and I'm here for it. We could be looking into it too much, but I'm telling you now, Gods of Ragnarok, they're back. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy as ever, please do remember to like, comment, subscribe and share. It really helps me out a lot. You can check me out on Patreon to get early access to our certain new videos and exclusive behind the scenes. You can become a channel member as well to get a couple of exclusive behind the scenes vlogs on Echo's Destiny. Stay tuned, lots of stuff coming your way. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Don't forget to click below and subscribe to the official Confused Adipose YouTube channel.
I will destroy you! She's not seen a single episode.
No, I've watched your episodes.
Keep these sonic screwdrivers.
What else am I saying about the film? Don't watch this one.